And now we're ready to move on to our next participant, Josh Moritz. And Josh is going to talk to us about the psychology of the sales funnel. And Josh, we are going to turn the time over to you right now.
Hi there. Good to be here. Let me bring up my PowerPoint for you. Just a second. Are you able to see it? Hello. Okay. I'm assuming
you may just want to put it in presentation mode.
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Let's go from here. Okay, can you still see it? I can't see you anymore, but I can see the PowerPoint. Everybody okay?
It did click it into a different format.
Yeah, this is I think it's best if we can keep it this way. All right, yeah, because I can't see the chat otherwise. So here goes, folks. So poll number one. Paul, were the polls put up? I don't recall. I sent them in yesterday.
We will put the polls up as you announce them.
Okay, so poll number one. So folks, just want to ask you some questions. Do business buyers need love? And do business buyers love you back? Okay. So I got 8 answers. Let's see. Do business buyers love you back? And okay, so good. We all agree that business buyers need love. And do business buyers love you back? It seems we've got 60% or 58%. It's getting closer here. Let's see. Okay, it looks like, okay, our business buyers don't always love us back, but we always know that our buyers need love, which is good. So what we're going to do today is talk about how the psychology of the sales funnel is really critical. So one of the critical things that goes on is that B2B buyers have psychological needs. And I think all of you may agree with this, particularly keep in mind that business buyers, they don't need a shrink, but they do need to be convinced to buy your products and services. And oftentimes they need to be persuaded, seduced, and cajoled, even if there's something as small as a Phillips-head screwdriver. And I think all of us have been in this situation before. And one of the things that goes on, and I'd like to do the second poll really quick, in developing your sales funnel, are you thinking about psychology? All right, 2 answers of yes so far. Good, excellent. Only 17% of the audience. Let's see if any more. Well, it looks good. It looks good. Oh, we've got someone who says no. All right, so basically what we've got at this point is that a lot of people are thinking about the psychology of how we need to communicate with our colleagues. Now, this is from the Gartner Group. This is a fairly complex looking way at how we, start and then get a purchasing decision done. And as many of you know, probably from doing selling yourselves, that one of the critical factors that goes on is that we need to not only sell to the buyer, but also to the gatekeepers and to the people beneath the gatekeepers so that we can maintain a good situation of communications and be able to sell. So buyers have feelings. And I think that, this is really critical. They need to be felt, listened to, respected, and heard. A lot of times what we find, and we're doing the CRM process, is that we often find that we're not listening to the buyers. A classic example of doing it well. Many years ago, I worked on a car brand, and I'm going to turn this into a consumer situation for 1 second. But one of the things that we were trying to do at a large car manufacturer was to get other people who owned a competitive product to listen to us about our product. And what we did was we worked our way through a number of emails, direct mail. Social media didn't exist in those days. And what we did was we kept saying to them, did we answer your question? And people would come back and say, yes, you did. And if we did, we invited them to come in and just to try out the car, look at the features. And eventually what happened is that we were able to convert quite a few people. And not only that, one of the things that we made sure is that we told them that we heard them in very subtle ways. So just like everybody else, we found, and I'm sure you find as well, is that people like they like a deal. They respond to messages and sales pitches and ads. And sometimes the deal has nothing to do with how much you're discounting, but so much as what are the features that are going to make me feel good about buying this product. Oftentimes what happens is that we are selling something. And I think that as you look at this, is that the larger, the more complex sale, the more consultative sale has to be. Many of you probably don't have $100 million. Anybody have $100 million sitting in their pocket to buy an airplane? Anybody got that? Just raise your hand if you do. I don't think that that's something that goes on all the time. So one of the things that Boeing and Airbus and Embraer, Bombardier, what they have to do is that they work for many years working with potential customers to see, well, what is it that you need? And, in their particular case, a salesperson goes out and they are selling something, but they're really selling a solution to a problem. And the problem is very expensive. So they take their time, they listen, they try to find out what are the things that work. The other thing is 94% of B2B buyers research online before purchasing. And this is from the Equity Group in 2014. So one of the critical things that we need to be doing is that, as our prior colleague was talking about, not only LinkedIn, but our websites have to be up to date. What kind of research can we possibly provide for people? Now, the psychology of this. Humans are much more concerned about losing something, so we research first and buy later. And I think that is very critical. When we're talking about early in our careers, we're willing to take more risks. But once we're at the top, we want to avoid failures. So you must know the person across from you when selling. So one of the things, and this is a generalization, but one of the things that we have to be critical about is that if we are in a position to buy something simple, or something reliable, that takes care of a basic need for us, that we feel secure, that we are able to deliver on. Early in our careers, of course, by taking more risks, one of the things that goes on is that we will try something new as long as we can rationalize it and there's testing. One of the other things that we know from psychology, and this goes with many CEOs, and we see this happen all the time, is that when you reach to the top, we are trying to, as they say, not to make a mistake. We want to be sure that whatever we do is that it maintains, our success, and we tend to go along with the things that we like and we know about. So, one of the things that is critical is, who's the person that we're talking to that is across from you? Are they the people that we need to find out? So here's another poll for you. Does your sales funnel strategy take into account the different places people are in during their career? Why don't we see what happens is? Anybody got answers to this? Are you putting that up, Paul? Okay. We're getting there. Okay, so at this point, neck and neck, one of the things that, we have to do as salespeople or as marketers, we have to know something about the person across from us. And we can do that oftentimes by sending out a simple questionnaire. Now, of course, asking people their ages, where they are in their careers, is something we have to start discerning on a more subtle basis. So one of the things that we have to be careful about, we don't want to, try to, how should we say, we're not trying to put people on the spot. But if we understand that the person across from us tends to be earlier in their career and they want to try to do something impressive, we might have, how should we call it, a safe selling situation for them. Something that if they buy, they know is going to work. Or vice versa, maybe something that's more advanced. So give me 1 second here. Now, tips you should know. This is where we start getting into, at the very beginning, the personalized advertisements. These could be personalized emails that are grouped by, where people in their situation in their careers. We might look at free giveaways, and these could be things like white papers, things that are easy to be able to provide to people just by having them downloaded. One of the early things, and this tends to go against the nature of the web, is that sometimes it's best early on in the early piece, not necessarily to ask for too much information from the person who's downloading something, since it might put them off. Rather, we should find a way to track them and try to come back and market to them through remarketing. Also, is there an element of surprise? Whether it's, and we have to be careful about what a particularly in business to business marketing is considered, bribery or stepping over the line. But is there something in an element of surprise that we can give that is something good that somebody can take a look at that doesn't cross any ethical issues? Celebrity influence. Is there someone well known in an industry that you're selling in that might actually endorse something that you're trying to do? They don't have to be outrageously famous. They just have to be people who are knowledgeable and who are effective in a sense of selling your product. We then also get into effective branding. One of the things that we need to do is that, are we on message all the time? And by the way, as you get into the sales funnel, one of the things that I used to do, for example, was that I also used to give our salespeople, when I was a CMO of a startup, little index cards with the right things to say when they were at an event or at a convention, to make sure that they were in line with the things that we wanted to say, also in our advertising. So lesson one in growing the sales funnel. And since these days I tend to teach more than I do other things, I tend to think in terms of lessons. So lessons one, feed buyers information online as well as cold calling them. Now, I know that, cold calling can take many different kinds of things. Connecting through LinkedIn is one, of course. But sometimes one of the things that we still do is actually go out and take a look at lists of people who might actually be coming in to our franchise and might be interested. So one of the critical things that we do is always provide some information. Let them take the lead in contacting you. Give them excuses to reach out to you, and then make them contact you. Give them an incentive and start small, free, and unobtrusive. We love white papers, but we hate giving away our email addresses, and wait for the second contact is the thing that we often found important. Now, the great thing about a CRM project online, again, is that we can start thinking about remarketing efforts the way our consumer cousins do all the time. Lesson two, build on emotional connections. Janet Crawford, a neuroscience business expert, takes a note that we are slaves to our biology. And MRI imaging has shown that humans in business are emotional decision makers. This is critical to know. One of the things that we do is that when we make a good contact with the person who's trying to sell us something, we tend to be at ease. We tend to like to buy from that person, not only because we trust them, but one of the things that we find out is that the trust builds on the opportunity to be able to sell. And it's not only building logical reasons to connect, but also on personal connections. One of the best salespeople, and if there's a way to do this in a subtle way that doesn't violate any ethical or moral standards, is make sure that you get to know the person across the table from you. Make sure that in many ways that they are trying to talk to you. And if they start talking about family, you talk about family. And we try to do this also online. So human factors rule. 65% of executives believe subjective factors can't be quantified. This is one of the most interesting things, is that when you get past the facts, one of the things that executives believe in is, can I trust the company? Can I trust the individual selling to me? 62% of executives trust their gut. One of the things that goes on in trusting their gut is that they go beyond the logic of trying to figure out what is right. In other words, factuals. 70% cite the company reputation as being critical. One of the things that goes on is that, has the company delivered before? And we often see this as to why today we have, really very few options in terms of buying airplanes. We know that, major airlines trust just a few places to go. Not only that, it's so expensive to build an airplane these days that only a few companies can afford to do it. The other thing that was always interesting about human factors, 61% of human insights must precede the hard analytics. So when you're looking to talk to a particular kind of customer, consider, the human insight. Who are they? What do they do? Where are they coming from? Maybe in their careers, in their personal lives. 71% say long-term gains are more important than short-term financials. Now, we know that many of our clients are on budgets that, quarter by quarter, they are trying to meet, their financial goals. But a lot of times, if we're talking about what the buyers are buying from us, and by the way, this can be simple things as buying screws to more complex things like buying, automobiles for the fleet. One of the things they're looking for is that what I buy, will it last and will it cause me few headaches? And 52% say the potential rewards outweigh the fear of failure. So, lesson 3, as we continue this, in complex business environments, executives rely on intangible differentiators such as culture and reputation over quantifiable differentiators. So culture is critical. Does the culture of your company, the culture of your website, the culture of your sales messages match the culture of the company? Certainly, an advertising agency, for example, working with Walmart is going to be very different than if they're working with Gucci. In fact, they may even put different kinds of people on the case. And we know this from culture that this is a critical thing to do. We find that interpersonal skills really built on trust. Human experience drives the data analysis. So what happens is that we find that we've got all this great data. One of the things that we want to be sure is that, does the data fit with my own personal experience? I teach many analytics classes these days, and one of the things that I stress to students is that we are looking at history often with analytics and using it to project the future. One of the things that we need to do in doing that is what the future will be. Does it look like what the past has been? The other thing that we get into are positive emotions have greater impact on decision making than negative emotions. So positive messages. How can this product help you? So poll 4, let's go to this. Who knows who is Maslow? Is he a CEO, a psychologist, a baker, teacher, or homemaker? Very good.
Thank you.
We've got 10 answers, 11. So far, good. A psychologist. So many of us, I can see, have studied Maslow at some point in our particular lives, which is great. Maslow is critical to many of the things that we do in marketing these days without knowing about it. And let's see how it applies to when we're dealing with the question of business to business. So we apply Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if you'll just bear with me for the 15 people who know of this, what happens is that at the very bottom, you'll see there's physiological needs and safety needs. These are things that Maslow has said in terms of the consumers. Things like shelter, water, feeling safe on the streets. These are things, the basic things that we have to worry about when we're marketing to people. Next up in line is the belongingness and love needs. Feeling as though that people, actually, know about us, they feel good about us, that we belong with someone. Finally, next thing we get to is the esteem needs, the psychological need of esteem, that I've been rewarded to do something or I feel very good. And then we get into self-actualization. What happens is that motivation increases the needs as they are met. So we actualize, we've been noted, we've been seen, recognized in some way. So let's see how this plays out if we're using a business-to-business CRM. Physiological needs, these are biological needs. So requirements for human survival, air, drink, and sleeping. If these needs are not satisfied, the human body cannot function optimally. For B2B, it's fine, it works. And these things can actually be seen in many ways as, my screw. I have a screw, it works. I feel comfortable, and I will move on from there. So it's good. I have a safety need. So once an individual's physiological needs are met, the need for security and safety become important. So we want to predict order, predictability, and this often sounds like clients that we've met, whether they are clients that we're selling to a medical product or an advertising agency selling to a product manager dealing with advertising. So in B2B, it's not only affordable, but it's safe. No one died using my particular widget. No one gets fired from buying the widget from you. There was an old saying long time ago, for those of you who remember, that IBM sold hardware at one time, and we're talking about big computers that took up rooms. One of the reasons that IBM dominated how should we call it, the market for so long, was that nobody ever got fired for buying an IBM. But if you bought a Honeywell, well, there was always some question. Love and belongingness. After the physiological and safety, the third is the human need to be social, involves the feelings of belonging. Belonging refers to a human emotional need. This includes friendship, intimacy. So the B2B concept of this is my sales rep knows who I am. Is your CRM program not only making sure that on a professional basis that you're getting the messages across, but your sales reps, and whether they're inside or outside, they know my business and they know me. And not only that, they may also ask about how the business is, and maybe, if I'm open to it, my family, or even my mother, my father, and my kids. We often see this in politicians. Politicians keep little index cards on important people, and sometimes it runs into hundreds, maybe thousands of people who they interact with on a regular basis. So they remember who to talk to. One of the things that we need to be able to do is be able to replicate that in a CRM system. The esteem needs. What happens here: self-worth, accomplishment, and respect. Esteem for oneself, desire for reputation, and the need for respect or reputation is most important, of course, in children and adolescents. But believe it or not, it's really important for our business buyers. So in the B2B case, I can make sure you get great recognition for buying the right product. You will shine, you will look good. So coming from the salesperson or coming from your website, giving reassurance, we're going to help you make look good. The self-actualization needs are the highest level in Maslow's hierarchy. It may be a strong desire to become an ideal parent, and another, the desire to be expressed economically, academically. So what happens is, and by the way, this is really hard to think about when you have a career that's 30 years long, and maybe you won't be CEO for the next 20, but their self-actualization is not only that I want to be a CEO or head of my department, get the biggest bonus, get a reward, but oftentimes it's just recognition. Recognition that I have done something correct and I've been rewarded for that. So that's a critical thing as well. So how do we nurture, CRM using Maslow? It's not just reading a CRM report. It's not just about messaging, but the right message, right time, and the right media. So, when we are dealing, and particularly if you've got, a younger sales force and a younger group of people running CRM, one of the things that we have to recognize is that oftentimes the buyers are of many different ages and many different experiences. So the question becomes, do we reach out with certain target audiences using things like TikTok or Instagram, or are we better off using Facebook, or are we better off occasionally sending a letter? In person versus direct mail versus social media, live events versus webinars. We still have to remember that one of the most critical things that we need to do is in CRM and in the funnel, as we start checking off what's going on, is the need for a phone call or being in person or even texting someone. One of the critical things that goes on is that it's the education, it's being able to inform people, to engage and convert them into great people who would like to buy something. The other thing that's going on is that we also take a look at the table stakes of physiological and safety. The basic needs of the buyer. Now, these are table stakes, things that must be done. A physiological need for a B2B person might be, I need it now. The safety need, it works and does no damage, and I won't lose my job. That's really the table stakes of a great Maslow CRM program. The basic needs offer from the seller might be as simple as I have it in stock and it works. Maybe no price discounts, no bundles. It's a screw at any hardware, office supply store, or factory. So the basic that it seems to meet is any psychological need. But it does it is there, I can have it, and I'm fine with it. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is that as I threw up this picture of an Apple iPhone, Apple, through this, one of the things that they did was to be sure that the phone seemed like it could be waterproof. And this was a very simple thing to throw out for the consumers. Can we do this with our own sales force? I don't know. The other question is, what might it look like? This happy gentleman could be at Lowe's or at Home Depot. And one of the questions that comes in is that here we are, an experienced person, and he says, this screw will work for you. The psychological needs of the buyer, belongingness and love of the B2B buyer. I'm not sure what I need. I want to be sure what I buy is brand new, but needs work. So one of the critical things that might go on, of the esteem for the buyer is that it makes me look good and gets me a promotion. So what kinds of things do we have at this point that actually do that? The psychological needs of the seller might be love from the seller. Let me bring you a cup of coffee and let's discuss. We're not ready to negotiate price, but we're here to reassure you that we can find a solution for you. And the other thing that may go on is that let me make you happy. Now, making you happy, of course, in a business relationship is a reassurance. The esteem from the seller might be, I'm going to make you look good. I'm going to stand behind you no matter what happens with this product, and you're going to be a winner. So I give that feeling getting across. We get into self-actualization of the buyer, the highest level from the buyer's point of view. I made it to the top. I got the reward and the recognition. I was mentioned in the New York Times. From the seller, it would be, I sold you the widget that made your company top in its field, and I will work with you to ensure that your success will make you become the CEO, and I will be your enabler. The two pictures here that I show, the person on the left in the red tie is one of the top salespeople for Boeing. Again, one of the things that his job is to do is to reassure people that whatever they do and whatever they buy from Boeing is going to work and it's going to be economically feasible, meeting their needs. And on the right-hand side, we have two commercial real estate people who are, they are out there to rent you a space or sell you a space that helps your company do good work all the time. So in summary, the sales funnel psychological needs must be met. We must keep in mind that B2B customers are human beings. They are motivated by similar needs, wants, and desires that regular human customers want. They need reassurance through the funnel and our communications process, whether it's in person, in social media, whether it's email or direct mail, whether it's at an event or at a conference. They want to be appreciated. And that whatever we do for them meets their ego needs, and that they will be recognized and rewarded for whatever they buy from us. So the final poll. Do you love your buyer after this? And will you let your buyers love you back? So one more poll, and then we'll take answers. Or take questions, rather. Sorry. Okay, great. So we have 10 answers, 11 growing that yes, we do love your buyers. Excellent. And will you let your buyers love you back? And the answer is 89%, 90% say yes. Fantastic. Good. So remember the psychological things that Maslow is talking about. We can certainly apply many other kinds of psychological things to making our funnel work better. So keep that in mind. Okay, what kind of questions can I answer for the audience?
Hey, Josh, I have a question for you that's come in. they're asking, how do we make our customers feel safe? When you talked about the safety.
Sure. One of the things we can make them feel safe about is that whatever we sell them is going to work. And I think that's the most critical thing. At the very basic, when Apple sells me a phone, and whether I'm using it for everybody in my company or for myself, I want to know that that phone is going to work. When Verizon becomes my company's service provider for texting and for emails and for phones, I want to know that their service is going to be up, 100% of the time. And I think we see this, by the way, with AWS. One of the critical things that goes on with Amazon and when they're selling their services to businesses is that they are out there to make sure that it's going to work all the time. First, it's got to work, and that's where safety comes in.
That's great. We also had a question about when you talk about building emotional connections and maybe some tips on how they can build those connections.
Sure. So we'll take it in a few different ways. First is, of course, on a personal basis. Once, and by the way, inbound and outbound telemarketers who may be selling on your behalf should learn how to talk in small talk. Learn about the people who are buying and learn about the things that they like to talk about. Second, if you're building a website of information or reaching out to someone, listen to what they are saying. And if they, if they go into talking about a little bit about their personal life, listen to that, maybe talk about that for a little bit before coming back to being able to, how should we say, talk about the product you're trying to sell, because that's what we're ultimately doing. The other question might be, is that talk to them or to talk to the people who are buying from you in the media that they are most comfortable with. We've seen this a lot of times, and maybe it's an age-related thing, cultural. Some people really enjoy, let's say, Pinterest as a way to understand the different choices they've got, or Instagram, for example, making sure that they're connected in those particular ways. Some prefer emails, some prefer telephone calls, and I think that those are the things that you have to think about as you're moving people through the funnel.
Great, thanks, Josh. Tracy made a comment also that if anything's happening, we've got your back. That's another way to
Absolutely
build that connection. So
yeah, and I think Tracy, that is a critical thing. If the product is delivered and it works for a while but it breaks, I know that somebody will be there really quick to help me fix it. The other thing that's also critical in the funnel situation, the psychology of you get back to me really quick with with answers to my question, or at least saying to me, I will get back to you in time. And by the way, this is one of the great things that we can do with our databases and our internets, is that we can have a whole slew of information ready to go, trying to answer exactly anticipating what the customer is talking about. Does that help, Tracy? I guess so. You said exactly. Okay,
yeah,
good.
I think that's great, Josh. Thank you for your presentation. I think that's all the questions that we have. The last question I have is, what's your dog's name? We could hear your dog in the background, and several of the people were chatting about it.
Yeah, Lucy. She's
Lucy.
A puppy. She's 5 months old at this point. And
Okay.
when you're not paying attention to Lucy and you live in an apartment in New York City, sometimes guess what? She talks to you.
All right.
There you go.
Give Lucy a hug for us.